My wife cheated with her boss, siphoned off $300, $0 from our joint account to buy a house for her affair, and now she's claiming I'm the one who stole the money in a bitter legal battle over everything we've built. I feel like I've lost my mind. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. My wife Emily was supposed to be my partner, my best friend, the one I trusted with everything. We had a nice life, steady jobs, a house, a dog. Things weren't perfect, but they worked. Or so I thought. Then one day, out of nowhere, I caught her in a lie that shattered everything I believed about us. It started with small things. Emily suddenly became secretive about her phone. She'd hide it when I entered the room, delete messages, change her passwords. She was more distant too, often distracted, snapping at me over little things. I noticed her spending more time at work, staying late, coming home with a strange smile on her face, acting like she was hiding something. I brushed it off at first, telling myself she was stressed or busy. But deep down, I knew something was off. One evening, I decided to check her phone. I know, trust is supposed to be the foundation of any relationship, but I was desperate for answers. I grabbed her phone when she was in the shower, and that's when I saw the messages. At first, I thought it was just a flirtation, some harmless banter. But then I saw the text where she was talking about her boss, a guy named Mark. The way she described him, how he was so hot, how she felt alive again, it made my stomach turn. Then I saw the pictures, not just text, but explicit photos. I was stunned. My wife was having sex with her boss. My mind went into overdrive. I felt like I was hit by a freight train. I scrolled through more messages, plans to meet up, secret dates, promises to leave their spouses. The worst part, she was planning to leave me. I saw her talking about how she was going to buy a house with Mark, how they were going to start fresh somewhere new, away from all the drama. That's when I saw the bank statements. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, about $300,000 withdrawn from our joint account. Most of it was siphoned off to buy that house for her and Mark. I couldn't believe it. My wife was cheating on me, lying, stealing our money all at once. I felt betrayed, furious, helpless. I didn't sleep that night, just sat there holding her phone, staring at the evidence. I kept asking myself, how could she do this? How could she lie to me for so long? I felt like I was losing my mind. Just yesterday, we were talking about our future, planning vacations, saving for a new car. Now I was staring at proof that she was having sex with her boss and stealing from us. The betrayal cut so deep I didn't know if I'd ever recover. I didn't know what to do next, but I knew I couldn't keep living in this lie. I had to confront her, even if I was terrified of what I'd find out. So I waited until she came home that evening. When she walked in, she was wearing that fake smile she always put on when she was hiding something. I could see right through it. She looked surprised when I told her I knew everything. Her face went pale, then she started to lie, saying I was paranoid, that it was all just a misunderstanding, that Mark was just a friend, that she didn't mean for me to find out like this. But her words sounded hollow. I wasn't buying it. I felt the anger boiling inside me, mixed with a deep sadness I couldn't shake. What hurt most was how she dismissed everything. Her tone was bitchy, dismissive, like I was the crazy one. She said I was overreacting, that I was jealous, that I was imagining things. But I had the proof, every message, every withdrawal, every secret meeting. She kept lying, kept twisting the story to make herself look innocent. I wanted to scream, to break something, but I just stood there, stunned. How could she be so cold, so manipulative? I'd always thought she was the love of my life. Turns out, she was just using me for our money while she screwed her boss and built a new life with him. That night I felt like I'd lost my mind. The betrayal was so complete, so devastating, I wondered if I'd ever trust anyone again. All the plans we made, all the dreams we shared, gone. I was left with nothing but a broken heart and a flood of questions. How long had she been lying? How much money had she taken? Was I just a fool for believing she loved me? I knew I had to do something, but I didn't know what yet. All I knew was that my life was never going to be the same. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, her lies, the pictures she sent Mark, the money she stole. I kept replaying that night over and over, trying to understand how everything spiraled so far out of control. My head was full of questions, but the biggest one was, what the hell do I do now? I started digging into the bank statements more carefully. I wanted to understand exactly how much she took, where it went, and how she hid it from me. I found out she'd siphoned off that $300, $0 over the course of about a year. Most of it went into buying that house for her and Mark somewhere in the suburbs, a fancy place that probably cost twice what we paid for our first home. She kept telling me she was saving up for something special, but I knew better now. That something special was her living with her boss, screwing around, and spending our savings on a new life. I also found out she'd been lying about her work hours. She'd been sneaking around, meeting Mark at his office or at the new house. It all added up. The woman I thought I knew was a complete stranger, cold, manipulative, selfish. The betrayal cut so deep I started questioning everything. How could I have missed the signs? Was I blind? Or was I just too in love to see what was right in front of me? I decided I couldn't just sit and stew in my misery. I had to confront her again, get some answers, and figure out how to handle this mess. So I called her at work. She answered with that fake sweetness she always used when she was hiding something. I told her I knew everything about Mark, the house, the money. Her reaction was instant. She scoffed, saying I was crazy, that I was imagining things, that I was just jealous. She even accused me of controlling her, like I was the one at fault here. "Emily, don't lie," I said, voice trembling. "I saw the messages. I saw the bank withdrawals. You're cheating and you're stealing from us. How could you do this?" She snapped back with a bitchy tone. "You don't know what you're talking about. You're paranoid. Mark and I, we're just friends. You're overreacting because you're insecure. Maybe if you spent less time accusing me and more time trusting me, this wouldn't be a problem." That was the moment I realized how good she was at spinning her lies. She was playing the victim, acting like I was the crazy one, twisting everything around to make herself look innocent. I wanted to scream at her, tell her how much I hated her, how betrayed I felt. But I kept my cool, knowing I needed to figure out my next move. Once I hung up, I felt an overwhelming mix of anger, sadness, and helplessness. She lied for so long, manipulated me into trusting her, and then stole everything we had built. I started questioning if I even knew her at all. Was she always like this? Was our entire relationship a lie? I kept thinking about the money, the years of hard work we'd done, gone in a matter of months, just like that. And for what? A house with her boss. A new life built on lies and betrayal. I knew I couldn't just walk away. I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what yet. My instincts said to take control, to plan my revenge, to make her pay for what she'd done. But I also felt lost, broken. How do you rebuild after something like this? How do you even begin to trust again when the person you loved the most in the world turned out to be your biggest enemy? That night, I sat alone in our living room, staring at the wall, replaying everything. I felt like I was losing my mind. The love I had for her was still there, buried beneath layers of betrayal, but I knew I had to act. I couldn't let her get away with this, not without consequences, not without making her realize that she couldn't just screw over her own husband and walk away. I didn't know exactly what form my revenge would take, but I knew one thing. I was done being the victim. It was time to fight back. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I started digging into every detail I could find, trying to piece together how she managed to pull this off without me noticing sooner. It wasn't just the money, though that was the biggest blow. It was her entire attitude, her lies, her changing stories. I had to find a way to fight back, to even the score, but I wasn't just going to do something impulsive. No, I wanted her to feel the sting of betrayal, to see her lose what she thought she had. I reached out to a private investigator I knew from some old contacts. I told him I needed to know everything: her whereabouts, her meetings with Mark, any hidden accounts or assets. I wanted the full picture. The investigator was expensive, but I didn't care. I needed proof, something undeniable and sure. Enough. Within a week I had everything. Photos of her sneaking out late at night, receipts from the house she bought with Mark, and even evidence that she'd been funneling money into secret accounts under fake names. Meanwhile, I started talking to a lawyer. I wanted to understand my rights, how to protect myself legally, and what kind of fight I was in for. The lawyer was blunt. Your wife been siphoning off hundreds of thousands, and she's lying about everything. She's committed financial fraud, adultery, and breach of trust. We can go after her for the stolen money, and depending on your state's laws, you might be able to claim some of the house or other assets, but this is going to get messy. I nodded, feeling the weight of the coming battle. I knew I couldn't just confront her again without a plan. I had to make her see I was serious. So I decided to play it smart. I told her I wanted a divorce, nothing violent, just a clean split. I wanted her out of the house, and I wanted her to pay for what she'd done. I also had my lawyer draft some legal notices, warning her about the investigation and the financial charges we'd be pressing. I wanted her to know I wasn't going to be pushed around anymore. One afternoon, I arranged to meet her at a neutral place. I told her I needed to talk face to face and I didn't want to do it at the house anymore. When she arrived, she was her usual bitchy self, defensive, dismissive, trying to play the innocent victim. But I was ready. I laid everything out on the table, the evidence, the bank statements, the pictures. I told her I knew about the house, the money, the affair. Her eyes widened for a moment, then she scoffed. You're crazy, she spat. You're just jealous because I don't want to be with someone who's so insecure. Mark and we're in love. You're just mad because I'm finally happy. And that house, I bought it because I deserve better than this pathetic marriage. I felt my blood boil. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, You're not leaving this without consequences. I'm going to take you to court for the money you stole, for the affair, and for the emotional damage you've caused. You can lie all you want, but I've got proof, and I'm not going to let you walk away with everything you stole from us. Her face twisted into a scowl. She started yelling, calling me controlling, paranoid, a loser, but I didn't flinch. I knew I had her cornered. I could see the panic in her eyes, the cracks in her perfect little facade. That's when she started to panic, realizing I wasn't backing down. That was the turning point. I knew she'd fight me tooth and nail, but I was done playing nice. I was going to make her pay. I was going to take back what was ours, and I was going to make her regret the day she ever crossed me. I didn't care what she said anymore. I had the proof, the law on my side, and a burning desire to see her suffer just a little for all the pain she'd caused. As I left that meeting, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. The war was on. I knew this wasn't going to be easy, but I was finally taking control. She thought she could cheat and steal her way out of it, not a chance. I was going to make her face the consequences, and I was going to do everything I could to get justice for what she'd done. No more lies, no more hiding. It was time for her to pay. The legal process moved quickly after that. I handed everything over to my lawyer, proof of the affair, the bank statements, the receipts from the house, the texts where she was planning her escape with Mark. She tried to spin it, of course. Tried to call me paranoid, said I was making everything up, that I was jealous and insecure. But I had the evidence and I knew how to use it. Still, it was a strange feeling knowing I was about to go to war with the woman I once thought loved me. She kept insisting she was the victim, that I was just an angry, controlling husband. She'd cry, scream, throw tantrums, whatever it took to make me doubt myself. But I saw through her. I saw her desperation, how she was clinging to her lies. I knew she was trying to manipulate the situation, but I wasn't going to let her. I had the law on my side now, and I was determined to come out on top. The first court hearing was a mess. She showed up wearing her bitchy smirk, acting like she was the innocent victim. Her lawyer tried to argue that I was overreacting, that her actions weren't that serious, but the judge wasn't buying it. My lawyer presented the evidence, and the judge looked at her with suspicion. When I testified, I kept it simple, laid out the facts, showed the proof. I told them how she had lied, cheated, and stolen from us, that she had been building a new life with her boss behind my back. The courtroom was tense, and I could see her trying to maintain her composure, but her hands were trembling. The judge's decision came quickly. They froze her assets, ordered her to surrender the house, and set a date for a full trial. I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. I was finally taking back control, but I knew this was just the beginning. She would fight dirty, I was sure of that, and I had to be ready. In the meantime, I started moving forward with my own plans. I found out she'd been secretly transferring money into offshore accounts, trying to hide her tracks. I hired a forensic accountant to trace every dollar, every transfer, every shady deal. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. I also began planning how to rebuild my life without her. It wasn't easy, trust was shattered, and I felt like a shell of the man I used to be. But I knew I had to keep going. One night, I caught her trying to access her secret accounts again. She thought I didn't know, but I was watching her online activity. That's when I decided I'd had enough. I confronted her outright, told her I knew about all her schemes, about how she'd been lying and stealing even now. Her face turned pale and she started to scream at me, calling me crazy, saying I was trying to ruin her. But I wasn't going to be fooled anymore. I told her she was done, that I was going to expose everything, and that I was going to make sure she paid for her betrayal. That was the moment she snapped. She accused me of being a controlling, jealous husband, and then she threatened to ruin me, to destroy everything I'd ever worked for. But I wasn't afraid. I'd already come too far. I knew I had the evidence, I had the law, and I had the resolve. She was desperate, and I could see that her world was crumbling around her. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not anymore. I was finally taking control, and I was going to make sure she understood that her actions had consequences. The war was just beginning, and I was ready for it. The court date finally arrived, and I felt a strange mixture of anticipation and dread. I knew she'd fight tooth and nail. She always did when she was cornered. But I also knew I had the upper hand now, with all the evidence on my side. Emily showed up in a designer dress, her usual bitchy smirk plastered on her face, trying to look innocent. She wasn't fooling anyone. She thought she could manipulate the system, spin her lies, and walk away unscathed. When the judge called the court to order, I stepped forward first. I laid out everything: how she'd stolen our money, her affair with Mark, the house she bought behind my back, all of it. I played the recordings of her texts, showed the bank statements, the receipts for the house, and the offshore transfers. I kept my voice steady, but inside I was boiling. I knew she was trying to act like the victim, crying about how she was misunderstood, how I was controlling, but I didn't buy it anymore. Her lawyer tried to dismiss the evidence, claiming it was all circumstantial, that I was just jealous and paranoid. But the judge wasn't buying it. The judge looked at her with suspicion, then turned to me and asked if I had anything else to say. I told her I just wanted justice, return of the stolen money, the house, and a fair divorce. I said I wanted her held accountable for her lies and her betrayal. Then the judge made her ruling. She ordered Emily to surrender her claim to the house, to pay restitution for the stolen money, and she set a date for the divorce proceedings. Emily's face twisted in rage. She yelled, calling me a controlling psycho, saying I was trying to ruin her life. But the judge didn't care. The courtroom was silent except for her protests. I felt a strange sense of relief. It was like I finally took a stand and the law was on my side. After the hearing, I felt exhausted but victorious. I knew this wasn't the end. She'd try to fight back, probably with more lies or schemes. But I was ready for it. I had the evidence, I had the law, and most importantly, I had my dignity back. I started making plans to move on, to rebuild my life without her. I found a new place to live, got a good job, and began therapy to deal with the emotional fallout. It wasn't easy. I felt the pain every day, but I was determined to come out of this stronger. The hardest part was realizing how much I'd been blind. I had loved her, trusted her, built our life together. And she'd used that trust to betray me, to steal from me, to cheat on me. But I also learned something crucial. I was stronger than I thought. I wasn't going to let her destroy me. I was going to rebuild, piece by piece, and move forward. The betrayal hurt like hell, but I refused to let it define me. I'd learned that sometimes the only way to get justice is to fight for it, even when it feels impossible. And I did. I fought and I won. In the aftermath of everything, I've come to realize how deeply betrayal can cut, but also how it can serve as a brutal lesson. Emily's lies, her cheating, her theft, they're still fresh in my mind. Every time I think about the house she bought with Mark, I get angry all over again. But I also feel a strange sense of relief. I finally took control, stood up for myself, and refused to be a victim anymore. The court's decision was the closure I needed. She was ordered to pay back every cent she stole, and she lost her claim to the house. Watching her furious protests and bitchy dismissiveness during the hearings reminded me of just how manipulative she'd been. She tried to spin her lies even in court, but it was useless. The truth was out, and I had the evidence to back it up. Since then, I've been working on rebuilding my life. I moved into a new apartment, started therapy to process everything I'd been through, and focused on my career again. I don't trust easily anymore, and honestly, I don't think I ever will fully trust her again. But I've learned to trust myself. I've learned that sometimes the people you love can turn out to be the biggest enemies, and that's a hard lesson but a necessary one. Looking back, I see how naive I was. I thought I had a partner for life, someone who loved me and would stand by me through thick and thin. Turns out her love was conditional, only as long as I didn't question her or get in her way. Her bitchy attitude, her lies, her manipulations, they all came crashing down in one terrible, bitter moment. But I refused to let that define me. The thing I want to tell anyone reading this is that betrayal hurts like hell, but it's also a wake-up call. It teaches you who really has your back, and it forces you to grow stronger. Don't let the lies and the betrayals break you. Use them as fuel to rebuild, to become better, smarter, more cautious. Trust is fragile, protect it, but don't cling to it blindly. And if someone betrays you, don't be afraid to fight back. Stand your ground, gather your evidence, and do what's right. Because in the end, justice isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming your life and your dignity. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know one thing: I'm done being the victim. I'm done with her, and I'm done with the pain she caused. Now I'm focused on healing, on moving forward, and on never letting someone betray me like that again. Life's too short for that kind of bullshit. I've learned my lesson, and I'll never forget it.